Disney is in a race for time. There's no other way to say it. They are desperate to replace Bob Iger. They have to do a better job than they did with Chapek, although I think his failures were overblown and his successes were undervalued. You would not have Deadpool and Wolverine without him. But we'll set that aside and just talk specifically about why Disney is driving forward and outside of the company to look for candidates to replace their beleaguered CEO. Let's jump in. Of all places, it's the Hollywood Reporter that reports on the business side of Hollywood, specifically of the Disney company, which is much bigger than the entertainment enterprise that it is touted as. It is much larger. It's a streaming service. It's a technology company. Well, that one's laughable, but it's a theme park company. It's a film company. It's a television company. It's a news company, sort of. And it's a cruise line company, as we talked about earlier this week with that story about how they're one of Europe's biggest polluters. But as the headline says, there's a race to replace Bob Iger. With James Gorman's elevation to chairman, which will begin at the first of the year, and desperate to avoid another Chapek debacle, the company is pursuing new ways to find its next chief. And the Hollywood Reporter took it upon themselves to game out six different succession strategies or scenarios. And I think these are valuable, which is why we're going to run through them very quickly. But the story really starts with the fact that James Gorman decided he was leaving Morgan Stanley as CEO and became their executive chairman only. And then he announced back in May that he's exiting the entire thing at the end of the year, which gave him plenty of bandwidth to handle what's going on at Disney. So, starting January, he will become the executive chairman of the board. And he is solely tasked, it seems, with finding a successor to Iger, which I would say that can't happen anytime too soon. They are going to make their decision early in 2026. It's possible they could get it done sooner. Gorman isn't messing around here, and I think he sees the writing on the wall for Iger. And frankly, the reason why is not shocking. Iger promised to replace himself, and it's been 2 years since he decided to do that, and it hasn't worked out very well. Not to mention the fact that his contract only keeps him there through 2026. In a conversation with a professor at the Wharton School, you get this type of a quote. What you currently have now is an extremely powerful CEO, but whoever follows him in this role will not enjoy the same amount of informal power. It's true. In that sense, it's somewhat an ungrateful job to fill. While you formally get exactly the same position, informally, you have a very, very different power basis, which is why this can't be someone who is insubstantial. This has to be somebody that has a track record, preferably of running, companies that are, well beyond what Disney's valuation is currently and already has universal respect. That's a tall order. And here's where this conversation gets even deeper. Hollywood Reporter sets odds on the scenarios that are likely to play out. And with 5-1 odds on this one, this is what I think. I think that the move by Gorman as targeting 2026 means that none of the candidates, including Dana Walden, Josh Damaro, Jimmy Pitaro, and Alan Bergman, are quite ready to take over yet. No, they're completely not ready to take over. The only one that I think would be decent at doing this job would be Alan Bergman. I think Dana Walden is far too politically charged and has done everything she can to muck up things at ABC and the other television side items across the board. Maybe not on purpose or maybe exactly on purpose, but she would be a complete disaster. They suggest that the company could move some executives around, and they certainly could. It's been done before in Disney's history, moving people from position to try them out. In fact, Bob Iger did that himself, moving around Staggs and Mayer and a few others during the course of their leadership training. All of these names, including Rasulo, were bandied about as future CEOs, but didn't seem to muster up to what Iger was looking for. So he, of course, took the job himself or kept the job himself for as long as he possibly could. In fact, the article mentions that Staggs and Rasulo and others got moved about, and it didn't quite work out according to them. Really, it just was putting people in areas of expertise that they did not possess. They moved away from each individual's strength and kind of gave them a taste of something that maybe they weren't cut out for, regardless of how they'd come about the company. At 8 to 1 odds, they're talking about promoting from within, which I think is a very bad idea. Gorman may be trying to see if the candidates can prove themselves, as is suggested here. But I don't think that's quite the case. According to Pazunka, the Wharton professor we were talking about, he says that Gorman and the board may also take a close look at the criteria that the next CEO needs to have, which could give an edge to one internal candidate or another. I would say none of those internal candidates have enough depth or breadth of experience to even begin to be a qualified CEO in the future Disney. They also don't have the kind of respect or brand name recognition that it may require to take the position of CEO at Disney. And here's where I solely disagree with the Hollywood Reporter at 10 to 1, bringing in an outsider for CEO. Actually, the reason that they're taking so long is because they are vetting candidates from outside. They don't believe what they have now is capable of operating the company even a year down the road or two. If they're going to do this in 2026 early on, that gives us a full year plus to get around the corner on the people that are in the building. Well, I've suggested this, and so have many others, that none of those folks are ready. In fact, I've said it twice during the course of this video. I'm going to tell you going outside makes the most sense and would explain what's going on with Mr. Gorman and the succession committee. The Hollywood Reporter sees it as Disney's culture is so distinctive. Can an outsider run it successfully? I would say the only person to run the company going forward is either a person or a team of two people that have enough experience to cover all the bases, which is hard to do because of the way Disney is kind of fractured as far as entertainment and their cruise line ventures. According to Hollywood Reporter, at the D23 conference in Anaheim in August, Iger was treated like a celebrity on the show floor, and hardcore Disney fans sought selfies with the CEO, underscoring the unique role that the job entails. Well, you just have to be media savvy and ingratiate yourself to the populace at large that still appreciates Disney for what it was, not what it is now, which is another task the new CEO is going to have to take on. Bringing the company back to its glory and building the theme park empire in a way that it begins to compete again in that valuable market. And this paragraph is rather important. The Disney Succession Committee, led by Gorman, says it continues to review both internal and external candidates, suggesting the possibility is still live. The only external candidate to leak so far has been NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, which I'm going to tell you is probably a no go because that person enjoys not any kind of popularity and would be an immediate lightning rod, the likes of which we haven't seen in a while. Apparently, he met with the board last year, but with the 2026 target date, candidates at other companies and upcoming contract renewals could be available. No, I'm going to say they will be. In fact, it would probably be advantageous to consider co CEOs, which is Netflix's approach, which we're going to get to next. But if you look at them asking about Ted Sarandos, he said it's not even on my mind at a tech conference in October. So that's just a few days ago from when we're recording this video. I don't think that's actually happening. But mentioning that famous co CEO of Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters, who's the newcomer in that position, they have very different areas of expertise. And this is kind of the way the Disney company should work. You have to have somebody who is a creative and visionary on one side and somebody who is a bean counter and a financially, fiscally driven money manager in order to have, well, two sides of the same coin, which is what Walt and his brother Roy were. And that's when the company operates at its best. In fact, I would suggest that uh, Iger's predecessor and Michael Eisner had enjoyed that kind of a relationship for a long time until that partner, quote unquote, died. And then things started to slide through the cracks and create some fractionalization and some creative difficulties that weren't there before. Of course, in this scenario, the Hollywood Reporter seems to be aiming for a Josh and Dana kind of situation, with Dana operating the film and television stuff, which I guess is, something she can do. Not well, in my opinion. But then you have Josh tomorrow, who actually understands parks and experiences. And that's why he's in that position. Now, I would argue that recently he's demonstrated the inability to manage all the parks. He's good maybe at one. So maybe he's one level above his level of competency. But we see that all over the corporate world. In fact, we see people that are 10 times beyond their level of competency somehow in positions of CEO. Then we have the Bob Iger extends his contract, 200 to 1 odds. I'm with you. I don't think this happens again. He is kind of like that piece of cheese that sat out too long and has not good mold, but very bad mold growing on it. He has a lot of missteps, especially after his return. And the reason that the company is in such dire shape is because of the policies he put in place well before Chapek showed up. And the moment Chapek went to clean up those policies and kind of shift the company back the other direction, Bob went about undermining him and leading the charge into replacing his handpicked candidate. And lastly, they come up with the ridiculous: let's sell or merge, 500 to 1 odds. That isn't going to happen. I don't see Disney trying to give up the ghost. It's possible somebody could buy them. I mean, somebody who came across maybe an extra 70, 80 billion dollars, this year. I mean, that could happen, right? What's funny is the little addendum they dropped at the back of this article, and I praise them for that. From likely to long shot, the THR odds maker. 2 to 1 that Disney finally releases another Star Wars film that works, thanks to Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't think that's possible. I think that thing's going to be kind of a fart in the wind, so to speak. Some people will like it, some people will hate it, and Star Wars will never gain the relevancy it had under its current direction and leadership. I don't think anybody can argue with that. 5 to 1 that Disney enters a partnership with an AI company for post production support as Wall Street favors companies that do AI deals. Well, here's the problem: there's going to be confrontations with the unions, amongst other things. And maybe they do this and maybe they start using post production AI. But to be fair, I haven't seen anything that has impressed me in that area yet. We do have some very impressive video clips, and we're getting closer to that technology working. But at the same time, AI has its own drawbacks, and I don't think that they get anywhere near this without a lot of legal confrontation. 40 to 1. Disney unveils a new animated version of the MCU, seeing the success of Sony's Spider-Verse. Well, this is ridiculous. Why would they go about doing that? They're having major difficulties getting people to stay interested in Disney Plus, and that's really the only place that you would be releasing this. Animation's not cheap. Animators are not cheap. And even AI, when it comes to this, is going to be somewhat limited. They have difficulty just creating interesting storylines, let alone creating things out of whole cloth that, unless they do shot for shot from the live action, I don't think anybody will be interested. And 100 to 1, which I find funny. Disney stops releasing subscriber figures for Disney Plus now that Netflix has paved the way. I don't know. And finally, 4,000 to 1 brings back its Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser hotel and experience. This time, 20% less expensive. No. They could do something different with it, though. That could be interesting, intriguing. But I think they want to keep that tax credit and use that building for storage, like they're doing now. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think that the Hollywood Reporter is correct? Do you think that we are in this position right now that Disney is going to get this done and get the right victim this time? I mean, candidate this time? Are we going to get a new Disney CEO? Are we going to get co CEOs? I'm leaning towards somebody from the outside and possibly co CEOs. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And while you're down there, hit the thumbs up button because I know you liked this video and I know you like me, which is why make sure you're subscribed. Turn the red button to gray. It's free and I'm trying to get to 50K. I can do that with your help. Please help me and thank you. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.